Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel that takes you deep inside the San Francisco 49ers. I am your host, Jack Hammer, and this is going to be a fun one today. We had a former Super Bowl winner talking about Brock Purdy, and if you watch this channel and you follow most of my content, you'll see that one of the things I've said quite a bit this offseason is when the discussion comes to Brock Purdy, the people to listen to are those that have played the game, whether it's a quarterback such as Kurt Warner, maybe Jeff Garcia, numerous quarterbacks along the way have talked about Brock Purdy and his performance. Today, we're going to talk about one that comes from somebody that isn't a quarterback. It's actually going to come from a wide receiver. Well, even then, saying that it's not a quarterback, that's not totally 100% accurate, because this player actually was a quarterback at one point in time in college before transitioning to wide receiver in the NFL. He's from the Bay Area, and let's get into it. We have multi-time Super Bowl winner Julian Edelman going ahead and throwing his hat into the ring when it comes to Brock Purdy and his performance. Julian Edelman joining the Colin Cowherd show, was asked about Brock Purdy and the performance that he has seen out of Brock Purdy so far. We're going to go ahead and we're going to break that down in just a minute. Really quick, before we get there, I want to shout out a few folks over in the comment section. We have Raphael5629ers, a member of the Toolbox. That's why he has a $ next to his name. Says, like and subscribe, everyone. Yes, please. If you could, that'd be great. Like and subscribe. I would appreciate that very much. Let's get into what was said now about Brock Purdy from multi-time Super Bowl winning wide receiver Julian Edelman. Here's the thing. When you look at the 49ers, you look at Brock Purdy, the 49ers, they definitely got lucky when they drafted Brock Purdy. They certainly liked Purdy as a prospect. There's no doubt about that. However, if you look at it, obviously the 49ers waited until the final pick of the draft last season before picking a quarterback in that 2022 draft. Even then, the move wasn't so much about getting Brock Purdy because they thought he was going to be a great quarterback. They liked what they saw as a prospect, but that move was mostly about them not wanting to take a risk of losing out to another team signing him as an undrafted free agent. So the 49ers, they liked Brock Purdy. They definitely thought that he was a solid prospect, but they never expected for him to come out and do what he's done so far through the early portion of his career. You look at this, and like I said, Edelman was talking to Colin Cowherd, Colin asking Julian Edelman what he thought about Brock Purdy's play, if he was surprised by it. And he says, you have to be surprised by it. They struck oil, responded to Edelman. With a late round pick, Mr. Irrelevant, when you watch Brock Purdy play, he processes the game. You never see him double pump or something, double clutch. He knows where he's going with the ball, and that's a testament to Kyle Shanahan knowing what he likes as a play caller, what makes Brock comfortable, and also Brock going out and executing. And then he continued, I said, I went out and watched these guys in the preseason, and I was a little concerned with his arm strength because he had just had UCL surgery. He was barely getting it out there. And what does Kyle Shanahan do? He gives him plays and throws that he knows he can make. And right now, because of the talent they have, he doesn't have to play outside of his game. He just has to deliver the football. And this is an interesting comment. The whole thing is interesting because when you think about Julian Edelman, you think about who he played with, he's really familiar with what striking oil looks like. I mean, after all, he won 3 Super Bowls as a member of the Patriots, who themselves struck oil when they selected Tom Brady with the 199th pick in the 2000 NFL draft. If you're trying to tell me that the New England Patriots thought that Tom Brady was going to become one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time when they took him number 199 overall, I have a bridge in Arizona to sell you. So it just isn't the case. They thought he was a good quarterback, but they weren't expecting Tom Brady to become what he was, just like the 49ers weren't expecting Brock Purdy to become what he has, at least to this point. You look at it as well. Brady took over at quarterback for New England in week 2 of his second season. He didn't play at all as a rookie, but in 2001, Drew Bledsoe goes down during week 2 with a chest injury. In comes Tom Brady, and he goes on to lead the Patriots to 6 Super Bowl wins and 9 trips to the big game over the course of his career in New England. He also went to 1 Super Bowl, winning that also with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to come away with 7 total. So, just in terms of the comment made by Julian Edelman, were the 49ers lucky? You got to kind of break it down. The striking oil part, that's telling you that they were lucky because you don't necessarily know that you're going to get, oil. When I saw it, again, I've been around for a while. So to me, it reminds me of Jay Clampett, right? He's out there shooting his gun. All of a sudden he hits something. And next thing you know, there's oil coming out of the ground, and he goes from being a country bumpkin to a millionaire, right? And that's kind of where the 49ers are right now in this whole situation with Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's the guy that taken at the end of the draft, too small, doesn't have the arm strength, all those kind of things. But then he gets an opportunity to play because Trey Lance, the big number one starting quarterback that the team spent 3 first-round draft picks, gets injured. Jimmy Garoppolo, the guy who's been around forever, he gets injured. So what happens? Brock Purdy gets his chance, and Brock Purdy goes out, and he's done nothing but make the most of it. He has made 8 regular season starts. He's won them all. In addition to that, he has 3 postseason starts. He's 2-1 in the postseason. The only game that he's lost so far as a starter, he didn't finish. He only played 6 snaps in that game against the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC Championship game before getting knocked out with that torn UCL that he's had to have surgery on ever since, you know. And you look at Brock Purdy, you look at his numbers. Like I said, he's started 11 games. In 11 starts, he has 20 career touchdown passes to just 3 interceptions. Just 3 interceptions to 20 touchdowns in 11 starts for Brock Purdy. Yes, if you look at his stats, he does have 4. He had 4 during his rookie season. One of those was not during a start or even playing the majority of the game. It was in cleanup duty against the Kansas City Chiefs. But in the starts, if you take his starts or the games where he's played the majority of the snaps. So again, that's from Miami till now. Brock Purdy, 20 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, just tremendous numbers. This season right now, again, over the first 3 weeks, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. He hasn't thrown an interception since week 17 against the Las Vegas Raiders out in Las Vegas. That's a number of throws of 190 attempts for Brock Purdy since his last interception, since his last turnover via an interception. Now, he has a fumble that he lost in week 1, but when it comes to interceptions, he's not turning the ball over. You could say that he's put the ball in harm's way a few times, and that's accurate. Brock Purdy has 4 turnover-worthy throws so far to start this season. That's not where you want him to be. You want him to be a little bit better than that, obviously. Those 4 turnover-worthy throws could be a little bit of a concern. Last season, from week 13 through the conference championship game, he only had 6. So the turnover-worthy throws percentage is up. So that's a little bit of an issue. The average depth of target, right about on track. Last year, he was at 7.8. This year, he's right around 7.7 for the 2023 season. Over the course of his career, that's right about where he is. He's 7.4 is his average depth of target right now. He was at 7.7 last year. You know, the number was actually higher before this last game. He was at 8.5 in week 1 in Pittsburgh in terms of the depth of the targets, 9.3 against the Rams. And then it dropped last week to 5.3 against the Giants, who sent a lot of blitzes at him. And I think it was 33 out of 39 dropbacks the Giants blitzed. And against the blitz, Brock Purdy has been solid. And that's one of the things when you look at his performance overall for Brock Purdy during his time as the starting quarterback here in San Francisco, they're just going out, they're putting up numbers, and he's playing at a solid level. You know, to kind of continue on from the comments that were made by Julian Edelman, you know, you look at where the 49ers are, and this is an offense that has set records. When the 49ers defeated the Giants on Thursday night, they set a record for the most consecutive regular season games, scoring at least 30 points in franchise history. Under the guidance of Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy at quarterback, the San Francisco has now scored 30 or more points in 6 consecutive regular season games dating back to last season. And this is breaking the previous record of 5 set in 1984 by Bill Walsh and Joe Montana, along with 1992 when they had 5 with George Seifert and Steve Young. So you've got Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy right there doing something a little bit better than even Bill Walsh and Joe Montana and Steve Young and George Seifert. Remember that 1992 offense with George Seifert as the head coach. I used him as the head coach, but the offensive coordinator that season was Mike Shanahan, Kyle's father. So it kind of runs in the blood a little bit there, you know. And I think the other thing that you need to take a look at is that Kyle Shanahan finally has his guy. One of the arguments that's made by critics of Kyle Shanahan over the years has been that Kyle Shanahan has been unable to find his guy. You know, that's been really one of the biggest arguments against his performance. And in Brock Purdy, it sure seems like Shanahan has found the one. The two, again, putting the NFL on notice with a high scoring attack. If you look at the numbers since taking over against Miami, remember the first 3 points in that Miami game came from Jimmy Garoppolo. So you just go from there. Purdy and the 49ers have averaged 29.6 points per game from the time he came in against the Miami Dolphins till now. And that includes the NFC Championship game where he was hardly able to play. He was only able to throw through the first series. After that, he wasn't able to throw. They scored one touchdown with somebody else at quarterback. But again, just 7 points. If you take that one out, that number goes over 30. So when Brock Purdy's on the field, the 49ers score at a pretty high rate. And what makes this even more impressive is just how, like Joe Montana wasn't the first choice of Bill Walsh, Purdy wasn't Kyle Shanahan's first choice either. The 49ers 3-0 start to this season is their first since 2019. And that year, the team ended up reaching the Super Bowl. If San Francisco can get back to that Super Bowl like they were in 2019 and win with Brock Purdy at quarterback, the franchise will have struck oil for the second time. That's my belief. Because I think when they got Joe Montana, they were lucky to get Joe Montana. Did they like him? Absolutely. That was one of the favorites of Bill Walsh in the draft, but it wasn't his favorite. Bill Walsh wanted to get Phil Simms. Bill Walsh, number one choice going into that 1979 draft was not Brock Purdy. It was Phil Simms. So again, both of I think the two best offensive head coaches in 49ers history, Kyle Shanahan, Bill Walsh first, because of the fact that he completely changed the game and was able to win 3 Super Bowls during his time with the 49ers. You look at what Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan are doing, they've completely changed things around. And, part of the argument that you hear a lot of is that quarterback wins aren't a stat. Wins are a team stat, not a quarterback stat. Totally get it. But I do have to wonder about that just a little bit, because if it's not a team stat and you have a really good team around you, why are you not winning when you don't have the right quarterback? Like, for example, since Kyle Shanahan took over the San Francisco 49ers in 2017, the 49ers are 46-17 in games that were started by either Jimmy Garoppolo or Brock Purdy. 46-17 in those starts. Those are regular season games. In the games, 38 games started by quarterbacks not named Jimmy Garoppolo or Brock Purdy under Kyle Shanahan, the 49ers are 9-29. So I agree with the fact that quarterbacks aren't just I agree with the fact that wins aren't just a quarterback only stat, but quarterbacks have a great deal to do with the team's ability to win. And part of that is you go back and you look at it. And Lester San Jose puts them up here. He says Hoyer, Beathard, Mullins, that says it all. Trey Lance is one of those names as well. Thank you also for being a member of the Toolbox. And you're right. Hoyer, Beathard, Mullins, Lance are all part of that 9 of 29 group. And you're right. Those aren't very good players in terms of the quarterback position. And so what I'm saying is you can't just throw anybody out there to win. You've got to have a guy that can play at least a competent NFL level quarterback. I wouldn't say that Hoyer, Beathard, and Mullins are competent level NFL quarterbacks, whereas Jimmy Garoppolo is. Is Jimmy Garoppolo as great as his record with the 49ers showed? No, absolutely not. But he was a really good quarterback for the 49ers because he could operate their system. The problem with Jimmy Garoppolo is that when it got to the time at the end of the season, when you're in the playoffs, Jimmy Garoppolo shriveled up and he wasn't good in that situation. Brock Purdy's been different. He's only been there once, but in Brock Purdy's one trip to the postseason, his games in the wild card round and the divisional round against Dallas are both better than any of the postseason games that Jimmy Garoppolo put together as the quarterback of the 49ers. Even in the wins against Dallas, even in the win at Green Bay, back in 2021, those weren't as good as the performances that we saw from Brock Purdy last year. I think that is the biggest difference between the two, is that Jimmy Garoppolo shriveled up in the postseason, whereas Brock Purdy, he was able to stand up and perform at a decent level. So I think when you look at it, that's the difference there. And I understand like I said, I understand the argument, and I've been one who has said a number of times, when it comes to quarterback play in the NFL, when it comes to wins, losses, all those kind of things, There's never been a quarterback that's done it by themselves. No quarterback ever wins without having a good team around them. I just don't think that if a quarterback isn't the most important part of that team, there's a reason. Then we would have to wonder, why are they getting paid more than everybody else? Because quarterbacks have the highest salaries, because the general belief is that they make the biggest piece of actually being able to win and lose games. Shane Colamarino says, Jack, it's funny that everyone screams the NFL is a quarterback-driven league, but then winning isn't a QB stat when we don't want to give the quarterback credit. And that's absolutely right. If we don't like the quarterback, then it's definitely, not a quarterback stat when it comes to winning. If we like a quarterback, like, for example, the quarterback of the Chargers, Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert is a guy who he's a fantasy football coach's dream. He puts up big numbers. He has a big arm. He takes the ball down the field. He does all kinds of really good things. He doesn't win games. He doesn't. It's not just his fault, though. Part of that is the coaching that he's working under. Some of that is some of the players that are around him. But like at the same time, like I said, it's just not. You look around the league. There's guys who have big names that fans like, but then you go and you look at their performance on the field, and sometimes it doesn't match up with how much love that they get, for lack of a better term. Lamar Jackson's one of those guys. Lamar Jackson is a tremendous athlete, a good quarterback that can really throw the ball around, does a great job running, all those types of things. But you know what? Lamar Jackson in the postseason is no better than Jimmy Garoppolo. Has turned the ball over at a really high rate in the postseason. The blame had always gone towards Greg Roman as the offensive coordinator. I don't know. It's an interesting thing to take a look at. I was just looking at some numbers earlier today, and I wanted to see where Brock Purdy was this season, in terms of the average depth of target, compared to other teams around the league. His 5.3 average depth of target on Sunday was a low number, on Thursday night was a low number in that game against the Giants. Part of that was the pressure and what have you. But beyond that, let's take a look at, I just mentioned Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson losing the game yesterday with the Ravens to the Indianapolis Colts. And if we look at the average depth of target yesterday for Lamar Jackson, his average depth of target was 5.8. Is there really that big of a difference between 5.3 and 5.8 as quarterbacks? Lamar Jackson, 22 of 31 for 202 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, didn't turn the ball over either way, had one turnover-worthy play. Again, an average depth of target, though, of only 5.8. I don't know. I'll let you guys argue that amongst yourselves. But really, Brock Purdy's had a solid start to his NFL career, does what he's supposed to do, manages the game, takes care of business. He makes plays that other quarterbacks that have been around the 49ers don't usually make. If you've seen the film review, go ahead and take a look at the throw that he makes to George Kittle, moving to the left, getting away from it. The touchdown throw that he makes to Ronnie Bell, that's a thing of beauty. That's actually on my channel as a short. You can't see it on the short because of the way that the shorts cuts it, but he's getting that ball out so early, and he's putting it right on the money for a touchdown. You see it repeatedly from Brock Purdy. We saw that several times in the game against the Rams as well. So that's really where he changes. That's really what he's different from everybody else, is that ability to get the ball out of his hands quickly, get the ball to the receivers, let those guys make plays. And it's not always just the big guys. Like I said, Ronnie Bell with a really nice catch the other day for a touchdown against the Giants. And, that brings us to today. The 49ers playing on Thursday. A little bit of a change up because of the Thursday schedule. So because they played on Thursday, the 49ers holding practice today at Levi Stadium, getting ready. An early practice, they get a bonus practice in today. At practice today, Brandon Ayuk returned. So Brandon Ayuk was on the practice field. That's good news. That's a positive sign as they get ready for this game coming up against the Arizona Cardinals, which, as we'll talk about in just a second, all of a sudden become a big game. Players that were not on the field, no Deebo Samuel, no Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles. Deebo Samuel dealing with some ribs. He injured his ribs on that one catch over the middle, a little RPO catch from Brock Purdy right up the gut, and ran over some defenders. That was his catch right before the touchdown. at the end of the game that put him up, got him to 30. DeForest, Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, he's got an ankle injury that he's dealing with. Other players that were on hand but not practicing with the team, working on the side. Dre Greenlaw, who's dealing with an ankle. Juwan Jennings, Ambry Thomas. We know that Ambry Thomas is dealing with a knee injury. That's why he did not play on Thursday night. And then Charvarius Ward, he was out there, but he wasn't on the field. He was working in the weight room instead. So there you have it. The practice report, just a quick one today in Santa Clara. Again, it's a bonus practice for the 49ers. They get an extra day of practice over the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals playing yesterday, so they'll return to practice most likely on Wednesday. Meanwhile, the 49ers hit the practice field today. Brandon Ayuk back out there, like I said. Deebo Samuel and those ribs taking the day off. Same with Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles. I think we'll see Deebo by the time the game comes around. So we'll see. Also, Greenlaw with an ankle, Jennings, Thomas working on the side. Thomas coming back with that knee injury, and then Charvarius Ward. No word on what's going on with Charvarius Ward. We do know that Ward's been dealing with a little bit of an injury on his heel. Remember, before the season opener, he missed a day of practice due to a heel injury. Mentioned at that time that could be something that causes some problems. I did see him against the Rams limping a couple of times. Not sure if it was due to the heels or whatnot, but it looked like he was limping as he was going out to his position on the field. Speaking of Charvarius Ward there. So hopefully because of this long layoff, he's been able to get off of his feet, been able to kind of rest it up. I think that's probably why he wasn't on the field today as well. So good things there. And then again, yesterday was a big day for the 49ers. It was an interesting day around the NFL. Not having a game allowed us all to sit back and watch a day of football without having to stress out about watching the 49ers, or in my case, not having to work. So I was able to sit down and just watch football for a day, basically from 10 o'clock out here till about 8:30 when the Raider game got over with. And just, there's a few games that went on yesterday that involve are of importance to the 49ers. Number one, the Cardinals and the Cowboys. How about those Cowboys? Yeah, the Cowboys, 28-16 losers to the Arizona Cardinals yesterday. That was an interesting one, especially with all the noise and all the talk around the Dallas Cowboys and from Dallas Cowboy fans and from 49ers people who were skeptical of their performance against the New York Giants, people that follow the 49ers who were a little bit dubious of their performance against the Giants, considering that the Cowboys had gone out and put up 40 on the Giants in week one. And the 49ers didn't quite do that against the Giants, even though they scored more points offensively than the Cowboys did in their game. But the Cardinals come out, score 21 points in the first half, score another touchdown in the second, and they beat the Cowboys 28-16. That's a huge game in a couple of reasons. Number one, it shows the 49ers that they need to take the Cardinals seriously. The Cardinals have now scored 41 points in the first half of consecutive games. They scored 20 in the first half against the Giants 2 weeks ago. Yesterday, it's 21 against the Cowboys. So they need to be ready early on in that game. The Cardinals showing the ability to run the ball. They ran the ball really well yesterday against the Cowboys. Over close to 200 yards rushing for Arizona. And when you face the Cardinals, one of the things that you're going to get in a rush from a rushing perspective is James Conner. And James Conner is a big, heavy runner who isn't easy to take down. And he had 14 carries, 98 yards. He had a touchdown. A really good day on Sunday. Joshua Dobbs, a quarterback. The 49ers struggle with dealing with the quarterback. Joshua Dobbs takes off 5 times for 55 yards. I believe he had a long of 44. So, a 26-yard run for James Conner, a 44-yard run for Joshua Dobbs. That's got to get your attention, especially if you're the 49ers. I know there had been a lot of talk, myself included, about how Daniel Jones was going to be that first test of a running quarterback for the 49ers. Well, they passed that one, and they're going to get another one here in Joshua Dobbs because he can really move and get out going. Also, wide receiver Rondale Moore. He had three carries for 54 yards. He had one of those, or a 45-yarder. You've just got to be able to make these stops. You got to slow these guys down. If you can stop the run and you can force Joshua Dobbs to beat you through the pass, I think you're the 49ers. You're feeling good about that. That's that's where the 49ers have been really good this season. They've done a nice job of stopping the run. You look at their numbers overall, the 49ers this season on defense have allowed just 5 explosive plays, only 5, 2 runs, 3 passes, explosive plays being deemed as a run of 10 or more yards, a pass of 20 plus yards, just 2 runs against the 49ers this season that have gone for 10 or more yards, just 3 passes that have gone over 20. And you look at that number, you look at the 49ers, and one of the things that we know about this defense is the 49ers defense has done a good job of eliminating the explosives. They keep everything in front of them. They've allowed a high percentage of passes to be completed. That's kind of a negative, but at the same time, the fact that they're keeping everything in front of them is a positive. And because of that, what they're really trying to do is force teams to be able to make those throws over and over and over and over again, hoping that their pass rush is going to get to the quarterback first. And it's paid off for them. It hurt them a little bit in the first half against the Rams, but it worked really well against the Steelers. It worked really well last week against the Giants. And then in the second half of that game against the Rams in week 2, they were able to really get the pressure wound up, get up a little bit tighter. And the Rams also don't have anybody that's really going to take the top off. Tutu Atwell maybe a little bit, but Puka Nacua is their big guy. Nacua is a really nice receiver, but he's not going to be a guy that's going to take you deep. I think the 49ers got comfortable in that game and decided that they were going to tighten it up, and they did a really nice job. And so you look at this game now, the Cardinals coming in, beating the Cowboys. The Cowboys now a game behind the 49ers, but I think you need to slow your roll down just a little bit if you're the 49ers, because the fact that the Cowboys lost to the Cardinals really has zero bearing on where you are at this point. And the reason I said is because if the Cowboys win next week and the 49ers win, they're going to come into this game. The 49ers will be 4-0, the Cowboys at 3-1. At that point, if the Cowboys were to come into Santa Clara and beat the 49ers in week 5, they're tied. But the Cowboys hold the tiebreaker because of the head-to-head win. So right now, if you're the 49ers, you can feel good about the fact that you're a game up on the Cowboys, but in no way, shape, or form should that allow you to put your guard down and not take this game seriously against the Cardinals and really focus on this week. That's one of the benefits that came out of that win yesterday for Arizona, is that gets the 49ers focused on the Cardinals, but also you've got to stay focused to make sure that you take care of business against the Cowboys, because that way, not only if you can do that and you win against the Cardinals, not only are you a game up on it, you'll be 2 games up plus the tiebreaker, so 2.5, which is a big deal. So the 49ers need to take care of business this week against Arizona to get ready for that. Also around the NFC West yesterday, the Seattle Seahawks struggled a little bit up in Seattle against the Panthers. I don't think that's quite the I don't think there's anybody right now who really felt like the Seattle Seahawks were going to be a team that was going to compete with the 49ers this year. I know that there were some on the national side that were some of the Fox Sports guys that have typically gone against the 49ers were talking about the Seahawks being kind of the team to beat, those types of things. They're not. The Seahawks are about a year away. They have a young squad on the come up. Quarterback position, a little bit of a question mark there in terms of Geno Smith being able to really carry that through for the long haul. So we'll see. But again, 37-27, Seahawks win. So they're right there at 2-1 behind the 49ers. Another big game in the NFC yesterday, it wasn't in the NFC West, but in the NFC overall, was the Packers and the Saints. The Packers were down 17-0 to the Saints. Derek Carr gets knocked out of that game with a shoulder injury. According to reports, it's an AC joint is what is expected, and that could keep him out for a little bit of time. I look at the Saints, and the reason I think this was a big one for the 49ers is because I felt like the Saints defense was one of the better defenses in the NFL last season. I think the Saints defense has carried that over into this year. And what held them back last year was the quarterback position. Andy Dalton, just not it. And having Derek Carr, although he might not be great, he was going to help them get some wins. They were 2-0 with him there. They were, again, up 17-0 when he went down. They end up losing that game 18-17. The offense kind of just falling apart after he left the game. So that's a big one there. David Collins making a good point about the Cowboys, about Diggs being out all year. That's right. The big defensive back who was off to a really good start in the first 2 games for the Cowboys, had allowed a pass rating of just 1.0. No Trevon Diggs. That's a big one. You go back to the Cowboys game yesterday. They were also without a couple of offensive linemen. So they were dealing with some injuries and those types of things. And again, in the NFL, I had the argument quite a bit. I talked about going into the game against the Giants about not wanting Brandon Ayuk to sit because I thought they needed him to play. Turns out they didn't. But I always worry about teams taking another team lightly, especially in the NFL, because these teams are so talented. There's not a huge gap usually between the best and the worst. The quarterback position really being the biggest, but on any given day, you'll see a team pop up and do well. We saw that we've seen it from the Arizona Cardinals back in 2021. That was a bad football team that went out and took care of the 49ers twice in that 2021 season. 2 big losses that year. Now tonight it's Thursday night, it's Monday night, but we get a doubleheader. We got it in about 19 minutes. There's a big game that I think impacts the 49ers, and it's going to be the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Both of those teams coming in at 2-0. One of those 2-0 teams is going to fall to 2-1 on the season. The other one's going to keep pace with the 49ers at 3-0. I look at this game and I'm really interested to see, are the Buccaneers for real? I think Tampa Bay has a good defense. Baker Mayfield, the quarterback there now, taking over for Tom Brady. And they had a tight game in week 1 against Minnesota. Are they a team that can defensively shut down the Eagles and go from there? That's what I'm looking forward to seeing, because the Eagles haven't been impressive on offense that much in the passing game. They're a very impressive running team. That's for sure. They're very impressive against the Minnesota Vikings on a short week. But I want to see what they look like now. It's not a short week. They've had an extended break, have the Eagles, somewhere what the 49ers are going to be going into next week. Are the Eagles able to come back? Are they able to just go in there and take care of business against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? That's an interesting matchup that we're going to see. That one's coming up just a little bit more, just under 20 minutes from now. And then also the final NFC West game of the week, the Rams traveling to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals, and sounds like we might see Joe Burrow. I haven't heard any other updates at this point that he's not going to play. But again, I think you look at the Rams definitely put a scare into the 49ers with that performance on Sunday down at SoFi. That offense looking really good. Defense a little bit not so much, but it's also going up against the 49ers offense that moves the ball against everybody. But that Rams offense, at least in the first half, did a really nice job of keeping up. And I'm looking forward to seeing if Puka Nacua can keep this run on that he's been on so far going. It's as Hocus Pocus over here says, it's the Puka show for the Rams. And I don't usually play fantasy football. My son got me into it this year. I'm in a league with him, and I tried to get Puka Nacua through waivers after the game against the 49ers, but somebody else on the team got it. And but this is a guy, Puka Nacua is a guy who, you look at the numbers that he's put up in his first 2 starts, just huge numbers. We're talking like if he stays on that pace, it's record-breaking numbers in the NFL. So it's obvious that he's a big part of what they're doing right now. He's become the Cooper Kupp replacement, and he's really been doing a good job of it. So we'll see what happens tonight. So again, the 49ers, you look at the slate yesterday. I think it was a good day to see the 49ers in terms of the Cardinals beating the Cowboys, because that sets them up well. I think getting them focused for the Cardinals this week also gives them a little bit of breathing room against the Cowboys, but that breathing room doesn't really matter unless the 49ers take care of their own business against the Cowboys on Sunday night, 2 weeks from yesterday. So we'll see how that goes. And then tonight we get to see the Rams and the Bengals and the Bucks and the Eagles. And, when you look at it in terms of the Eagles and the Buccaneers, I think, when you look at tonight's game between those two, again, one of them is going to be right there with the 49ers in terms of being 3-0 in the NFL. That'll be interesting to see. The Eagles, yes, they haven't looked all that great to this point, but we know that they're a solid team. And when you look at the Eagles overall, the biggest thing with the Eagles is their ability to go out and run the football and then throw it off of that. So, one of these teams is going to be the only 3-0 team other than the 49ers, unless there's a tie out in Tampa Bay tonight. If you're a 49ers fan, though, I think you're going to be pulling for the Buccaneers. That's my thought. The interesting thing about it is it doesn't really matter because the 49ers are going to be playing both of these teams later on this season. The 49ers have the Bucs coming into Levi's again for the second year in a row. And then they're also going to be traveling out to face the Eagles. So regardless, the 49ers are going to have a head-to-head matchup with both of these teams. So it's an interesting night tonight overall also because you've got the Niners playing the Bucs and the Eagles. The Niners already played the Rams. Are going to play them again. The Bengals playing tonight. The 49ers will play the Bengals later on this season at Levi's. So as a 49er fan, this is has been a great weekend so far to kind of scout the rest of the league. Now you come to this tonight. Again, you get to scout a couple of other teams that the 49ers are going to be playing against. So that'll be interesting to see. Andrew H. says, Jack, do you got the 49ers covering 14 points versus Arizona? Andrew, you know me, I don't typically, when it comes to with the bets, I took the 49ers at 10.5 against the Giants in the pick'em game that I'm playing in. I was a little nervous in doing that, but after losing week 1 by not picking them because of the spread out in Pittsburgh, I picked the 49ers to get it. It bit me down. It bit me in the game against the Rams because I picked the Niners in that one, but then McVay kicked that field goal at the end, and so I lost it. I would say 14 points, giving up 14 points to Arizona. That's a tough one because the Giants, Cowboys, if the 49ers go out there and they play the way that we've seen them play, I could see them winning that game by more than 14. So that's a tough one at 14 points. That's a really, for me to put money on that game at 14 points for the 49ers. That's a tough one, even though I do think that they probably will win by more than that. I think it's probably a 17 to 20 point win for the 49ers against Arizona. But make of that with you. I've told you before, I'm already one of those who usually plays a little bit on the safe side when it comes to my betting lines in terms of who am I going with in that. So we'll see. Again, just to kind of wrap this up tonight, again, we had Julian Edelman came out on the Colin Cowherd show, was asked about Brock Purdy, about if he's been surprised with Brock Purdy's performance to this point. And, according to Julian Edelman, multi-time Super Bowl winner who understands what it's like to strike oil, he said that you have to be surprised with what Brock Purdy's done so far. Late round pick, Mr. Irrelevant, but when you watch him play, he just processes the game. We never see him double pump or something, double clutch. And that's the other thing, right? We watched the game last night. The Raider game between the Raiders and the Steelers and good old Jimmy Garoppolo in Vegas. And it was all on display. All the things that the full-on Jimmy Garoppolo experience. I used to talk about it all the time or write about it when Garoppolo was the quarterback in San Francisco. It was the Jimmy Garoppolo experience because he'd drive you crazy because he'd have a couple of throws that you're just, what the was that, right? And then he'd come back and next thing you know, the game's tied and the 49ers are winning. And it's just like, well, and last night you were close to that again. You had a couple of those throws last night. They get a touchdown to pull within 8. If we can just speak for a second before we move on, about that end of that Raider game. And I've seen some people talk about, I've seen a little bit of both sides when it comes to the decision of the Raiders head coach to kick the field goal at the end of the game, McDaniel's decision to kick the field goal. And I will agree with anybody who says that was a bad decision. And the reason I say it's a bad decision is this. When he originally kicked the field goal to make it a 23-18 game, there was still over 4 minutes left. So it made total sense to kick the field goal at that point. But they have the penalty, which gives them a free 15 yards. And instead of keeping the points on the board, they decide that they're going to go for the touchdown now. Once you take the points off the board and you start to take that time off of the clock to go along with it, you're now, I think at that point, you have now made the decision that no matter what happens, you are playing for a touchdown because you had the 3 points on the board. You took them off. And all they really did is they had 3 points on the board, took them off, then then ended up running about 2 minutes of clock off before they kicked the field goal anyway, and still finished with 3 points. So McDaniel's saying after the game, well, we had to score twice regardless. No, you didn't, and you didn't. You're just hoping that nobody's going to call you out on your BS here, because you didn't have to score twice. You only had to score once and get a 2-point conversion. You just had to score a touchdown, get a 2-point conversion, and that game was tied. You're only down by 8. And so, taking the points off the board and then deciding, kicking the field goal when he did, that's where the mistake was. That's where his mistake was. The original field goal with over 4 minutes left to play, good choice. You have the penalty, decline the penalty, or take it on the field on the kickoff and work from there. Pin them back deep. Hope your defense gets another stop, and then drive down the field and score a touchdown at that point to win the game instead of just to tie it. You don't have to worry about a 2-point conversion at that point, all those types of things. So that, at least for me, that's where he made the mistake last night in that Monday night game against the Raiders against the Steelers. Gregus Khan says that Purdy has it, Brady had it, Montana was it. Montana is the greatest quarterback of all time. Tom Brady, the second best quarterback of all time. We don't know what's going to happen with Brock Purdy. He needs to win the Super Bowl to get himself in this conversation at all. But Brock Purdy, I agree, has it. There's no doubt about it. All you have to do is listen to the people who know what they're talking about. And I'm not even talking about me. I'm talking about the guys who have been there, the guys who have done it, guys like Kurt Warner, guys like Jeff Garcia, guys like Steve Young, guys like Julian Edelman, who said that the 49ers struck oil, got lucky when they drafted Brock Purdy. Those guys are the ones that really know. They've been there, they've done it, and those are the guys who I tend to listen to the most, and I'll give them the most grace, because I do think that they know what they're talking about. They've been there, they've done it. They know what it's like to be in an NFL locker room. I think that's the other piece of it too. So, all in all, that's it. In terms of Edelman, feeling like the 49ers struck oil again, talking all about how good he's done. And again, I think that if there's anybody that's going to talk about the 49ers striking oil when it comes to getting Brock Purdy with a Mr. Irrelevant pick at number 262, anybody who knows what that's like, it would be Julian Edelman, who won 3 Super Bowls playing with a guy who was the guy who the Patriots struck oil with back in the 2000 draft, the guy that took them to 6 Super Bowl championships, 3 for Edelman, 4 trips to the Super Bowl, and all Edelman was able to get to. And is Brock Purdy going to be Tom Brady? I don't know, but I do feel like Kyle Shanahan has finally found his guy in Brock Purdy. Kyle Shanahan has found his quarterback, the quarterback that he trusts, the quarterback that he believes in, that can take them to another level. I did miss a super chat from Shane Calmarino. I got to throw this one in there. He says, "Thank you for the coverage as always, Jack. Enjoy the doubleheader. We know you'll be scouting, but grab a Jack and Coke." Absolutely, I'll definitely get my Coke. It's ready to go. It's already in the fridge, getting all nice and cold. So we'll grab the Jack. We'll throw that in there too. We'll have a good night. I'll stay off of Twitter to not get myself in any trouble. But absolutely, thank you very much, Shane. I appreciate the super chat for sure. You're one of the good ones, and I appreciate you for all the support that you give the channel. There's a lot of those guys out there. A lot of you that do, and one of the guys out in here real quick, Gregus Khan, excuse me. I've argued football with this guy for years over at the 49ers site on the Press Democrat, the site that I now write for, 49ers.pressdemocrat.com. That's the Inside the 49ers blog. If you haven't checked it out, do it. Gregus and myself used to go back and forth time and time again, arguing about different players. And Gregus is one of those guys who made it through the great Smither Wars of the early 2010, 2011 timeframe. Alex Smith and all the battles over Alex Smith during his time as the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers, especially there towards the end when he actually found some success with Kyle Shanahan. So just wanted to shout out all the folks. If you see the guys over here in the comment section with their green, they got the little dollar sign next to the name. Those are the members of the toolbox. So if you like what you're seeing here, do me a favor, please. First off, hit the like button. After you do the like button, make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any of you're on it. And then also turn on your notifications. Subscribing is the first step. Turning on the notifications is the second, because when you turn on the notifications, That's going to let you know every time I put new content up. I don't come in at the same time every day. I kind of bounce around depending on what my schedule, when it fits into my schedule with everything else that I've got going on. So having your notifications on will help you not miss it. And even if you can't make it right at that time, at least it lets you know that there's been a new update, and you can go check it out when it comes up. Also, it'll alert you of all my my shorts that I post and the other videos as well. So again, like I always like to say at the end of the shows, take it all for what it's worth. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Hey, and if you're so inclined, like either Raphael 5629 is here with the $, or Piff Daddy 420, who also is a member of the toolbox, join. I appreciate everybody for taking the time to come in. Have a great rest of your evening. Enjoy the doubleheader tonight. We get the Eagles against the Bucks, and then Rams against the Bengals. The 49ers 3-0, moving on to week 4 against the Cardinals. Take care, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be talking with you soon.